They've been called the most radical band of their time. And, they didn't just write songs. They were crafting these anthems that really defined an entire era. So today, we're going to dive deep into the revolutionary history of Public Enemy.
I mean, think about it. They're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They've got a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. The list just goes on. So when a critic like Stephen Thomas Erlewine calls them the most influential and radical band of their time, that's a seriously bold statement. And it really makes you wonder.
How did this group from Long Island, of all places, manage to go from a local mixtape to a global phenomenon? Let's get into it and see how they earned that title as true prophets of rage.
Okay, so to really get why Public Enemy hit so hard, you have to understand the world they were stepping into. Before they came along, the way people saw mainstream hip-hop was, well, it was often very, very different. A lot of people just dismissed it as throwaway entertainment. The music itself was obviously groundbreaking, but the lyrics? They were sometimes seen as a little simplistic. The stage was basically set for a group to come in and bring a whole new level of depth, politics, and straight-up power to the game.
And wow, did Public Enemy deliver. Their sound was just this sonic assault. Their production team, the legendary Bomb Squad, built this dense, ferocious wall of noise. They were mixing free jazz, hard funk, and even something called musique concrete, which is this wild experimental technique using tape loops and real-world sounds. The result was like nothing anybody had ever heard before. So this revolutionary sound and this powerful message, it didn't just appear out of thin air. Nope. It was forged right in New York back in 1985 by two really distinct personalities who happened to cross paths at Adelphi University. On one side, you had Carlton Reidenhauer, who we all know as the visionary MC, Chuck D. He was the main songwriter, the political heart of the group. And on the other side, you had William Drayton, the one and only hype man, Flav. His chaotic energy and that giant clock, it was the perfect balance to Chuck D's focused intensity. And the name Public Enemy? That actually came from a mixtape Chuck D made to sort of fend off a local rival MC. He called it Public Enemy #1 because he felt like he was being targeted by the local scene. And that feeling, that idea of being a public enemy, would pretty much become the core philosophy for the entire group. So, with their core lineup locked in, Chuck D, Flavor Flav, Professor Griff, and DJ Terminator X, and with the Bomb Squad handling production, Public Enemy was ready. They were about to drop a series of albums that would go on to define hip-hop's golden age. Now, after a really strong debut, their second album, in 1988, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, was like a sonic earthquake. It was this absolute masterpiece of political fury and innovation that made the entire music world stop and pay attention. And get this album became the first hip-hop record ever to be voted Album of the Year in the Village Voice's super influential Paz and Jop Critics poll. This wasn't just a big deal for a rap album. Critics were saying it was one of the best albums of the year, period. They followed that up in 1990 with Fear of a Black Planet, and they just doubled down on all of it, tackling racism and social inequality head-on. And, well, it became their biggest commercial success. The lead single from that album was actually commissioned by Spike Lee for his movie Do the Right Thing, and that song, Fight the Power, became so much more than a movie theme. It turned into a global anthem for resistance that, honestly, is just as powerful today. With their fourth album, Apocalypse 91, they proved they were not backing down, not one bit. It had the track By the Time I Get to Arizona, which was this blistering critique of the states that wouldn't recognize Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday as a holiday. The song, and especially its explosive video, stirred up major controversy. Look, when you call yourselves Public Enemy and you're known as prophets of rage, you're not exactly trying to avoid confrontation. And over the years, controversy was always right there with them, sometimes even threatening the group from the inside. Back in 1989, the group's Minister of Information, Professor Griff, was quoted in an interview making some pretty awful anti-Semitic remarks. The backlash was immediate and intense. Chuck D first fired Griff, then he actually disbanded the whole group for a short time, before eventually reforming after Griff issued an apology. Then, decades later, another firestorm. In 2020, news breaks everywhere that Flavor Flav has been fired because of a dispute over a political rally. The media just ran with it. The story of this dramatic breakup was all over the place. But then, on April 1st, of all days, Chuck D reveals it was all a hoax. A stunt designed to criticize how the media loves to jump on negative stories in hip-hop. They literally turned their own breakup into a commentary on disinformation.
So yeah, despite all the internal fights and the external attacks, Public Enemy's legacy it's undeniable. Their influence wasn't just contained to hip hop, it completely shattered genre boundaries.
I mean, their influence just exploded beyond hip hop with that groundbreaking collaboration they did in 1991 with the thrash metal band Anthrax. Their joint version of Bring the Noise basically invented the rap metal genre, and it proved that their message could work with any musical style. The sheer reach they had is incredible. I mean, you've got the grunge of Nirvana, the political fire of Rage Against the Machine, the electronic chaos of The Prodigy, and even the wall of sound shoegaze of My Bloody Valentine. Their sound and their fearlessness inspired such a wildly diverse group of artists. And of course, that legacy has been officially cemented with some of music's highest honors. We're talking about their 2013 induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2020. And this really captures their whole identity perfectly, right? You've got the raw, incredible energy of their live shows on one hand, and then their iconic logo on the other, that figure in the crosshairs symbolizing their mission to put the establishment on notice. You know, when you boil it all down, Public Enemy didn't just make records, they started a movement. They completely rewrote the rules, and they elevated hip-hop from just being entertainment into one of the most powerful tools for social and political commentary in the entire world. They proved that music could be so much more than a beat and a rhyme. It could be a weapon, it could be a classroom, it could be a wake-up call. And that leaves us with a question that they force the world to ask, one that feels just as relevant today. In a world that's so full of hype and distraction, what happens when the noise is the signal?